at anytime. There it is. So hopefully
There
you
it
see
is.
that. We are live. Welcome to Bono's Health, my podcast, where we're hoping to get you 1% better with every conversation. Today I'm joined by Limitless Laurel. Sorry, gotta get the full word. Limitless Laurel. It's a alliteration.
That's right.
Sally sells seashells by the seashore. All right. We are joined here with Laurel Parker-Chan, joining us from upstate New York, and we're going to talk about light. Light is the big focus of the topic today. You have your beautiful ambient fireplace. Is that a real fireplace behind you?
It is, but it's just one of those switch ones. I don't get to load some good wood in there.
Very cool. Yeah, we have a Switch one as well. Before we continue, I got to shout out my sort of sponsor here, Element. Stay salty. The light, there's a lot of light, ironically, since that's what we're talking about. But element.com, drinkelement.com/fitcare. FitCare is my business. If you focus on your fitness, you can avoid the healthcare space. That's our goal here, and that's part of our goal for Healthy for Life. That little light bulb next to Laurel's head. Other side, the camera's backwards. There it is. So yes, Healthy for Life, and our subtitle is going to be shown here. Foundational skills for parents, teachers, mentors, and the kids they love. And your foundational skill is knowing the rhythm of the sun and how that's going to impact our health. So talk to us a little bit about light. Why do we need it? What's the deal? What's the deal with the light?
Yeah, something we take for granted, really. But I am here to let y'all know how light is seriously a nutrient that our body craves for in so many ways. And we're not just talking about light through the eyes. Actually, all over our skin and our hair, everywhere, has what we call melanocytes, which actually funnel the light and allow our metabolism to decide what to do, when to do it. And that's why you see me here. It's kind of late. So I always got a hat on, making sure that I'm signaling to my body to start getting ready to take it down, building up that melatonin supply, lowering cortisol response, all the good stuff.
Yeah, and I'll add a big piece of the puzzle, maybe, sort of, I don't know, but yeah, a lot of things is getting in this dysregulation of circadian rhythms, and there's a lot of the things we talk about when we talk about chronic disease and all these conversations. It tends to be these are diseases of modern living and things that we have not had 100 years ago. Cancer rates are skyrocketing. You can talk about a lot of the things in our book that we're talking about, Healthy for Life, environmental toxins, again, light toxins. The exposure, you can talk about our light diet. I had Michael McDonald, one of the other co-authors, on here. He talked about our audio diet, what we're taking in musically and things like that. So understanding how to control that. And yes, before we went live, I tried really hard to find my blue light blocking glasses, and I had to, I think, hide them at some point from my 2-year-old, so he wouldn't stab himself in the eye. But I do have blue light blocking glasses. I'm a big believer, and making sure that all of our technologies are also in line with that, and trying to wind down and prioritize sleep. Again, it's really cool how all these chapters, I don't know how many of the other chapters you've gotten a chance to read so far, but how they all intertwine. It's been really cool to see that, and I'm just excited to continue these conversations. So really appreciate you joining us here. So the other bit that really connects the connective tissue, if you will, of all these chapters in the books is this fascia, this concept of fascia and fascia hydration as a fundamental for optimal health. First of all, tell us, I think people hear this term fascia a lot. I think it's getting more mainstream attention. I know I just heard Andrew Huberman, he talks a lot about light. And how do you feel about Huberman? I mean, why you giggle there? Is there anything good?
Oh, yeah. I think Huberman doesn't pay enough attention to our cortisol pathways. But that's a whole discussion for another time. If you ever got a bunch of hours to yourself to listen to some good podcasts, him and Jack Cruz going back and forth, a little fiery.
Jack Cruz. So I assume you're a fan of Jack Cruz. I'll just give folks a little bit of my understanding. Is you're a big fan of Jack Cruz?
I respect how willing he is to be just rough and authentic and put himself on the line for all of us to learn these quantum biological principles. Although I felt as though in the very beginning of him pushing this message, he was kind of shoving it down everyone's throat.
That's where I turned off. That's exactly why I bring it up, because I think, I've always been in that health space, especially early on podcasts, even before 2010, when podcasts were barely a thing. And Jack Cruz definitely came across my path many times, and I was like, yeah, he's being a little over the top. I don't think I'm going to tune into this guy. I do, hope for as much intellectual conversations we can go for, and people being willing to be wrong, which sometimes did not seem like that was in the ether. Again, you get into the politics of it all. Another reason I think most folks say avoid the politics, because somebody's on one side, you're not really going to convince them of whatever you have to say. When the folks are willing to say, I think I'm wrong about that. Yeah, you know what? You proved your point. So yeah, Jack Cruz, Huberman sounds like an interesting thing. Which podcast is that on? It's not on Huberman's podcast, I assume.
No, I think it was on the Tetragram. I forgot who runs that. I think his name is Rob something.
We'll try to link to it in the show notes if we can. I probably won't, though. I'm not going to lie. But if I look it up, I will definitely. I'm always interested in a good conversation like that. So yeah, and the science is always changing. The science is emerging. The principles, and that's where I say again, a lot of the people I really enjoy and respect and listen to tend to be willing to change their mind on things. But yeah, I think we all need to be hopefully pushing for better science, better understanding of the science, and then better science communication, which is where hopefully a resource like our book here, Healthy for Life, launching on February 4th. I don't think I mentioned that on this episode yet, is launching on Amazon on February 4th. Please, guys, go out and buy it. It will be available for $1.99 for only, I believe, launch day. Maybe I got to get the exact details there if it's going to be a few days, but it won't be very long that it's available for $1.99. You're not going to get a much better deal than that for an ebook. And there's just a ton of information and we have 25 contributing authors. I've just been blown away learning new things. I like to learn all the time. I also consider myself very knowledgeable, but always learning new things, including I showed our dermatologist, Dr. Eyal, talking about skin. I showed him the oil of Olay sunscreen moisturizer I use on my face, and he said, yep, that's not a good ingredient to put on your face. So here we are. I learned something there too.
I am someone who is going to say, don't wear sunscreen ever. You need to just wake up early, get that UVA, build up that solar callus. I'm all about the beef tallow on the face, castor oil, all the naturals.
Love it. So all that to say, I just heard, coming back to our thread here of Huberman talking to Dr. Kelly Starrett, who's a physical therapist, about fascia. And I know, again, fascia is getting out there a little bit more. I describe it for folks who have no idea what it is when they're like, what's that word now? Is that a German word? I say, when you're cutting chicken, it's that thin filmy layer between the meat and maybe the skin. And so we have that within ourselves, but I'm going to give it to you to maybe define it better for the listener, and tell us why it's so important.
Yeah, that's a great way to start describing it. I love teaching free classes on this in my community because I feel like it is something we know about, but don't really know about. And it's such a low-hanging fruit to really change all of our just overall health. So like you said, it's going to be that slimy substance between the muscles, between the tendons, between the ligaments. I like to describe it more as the cobweb that holds us together. Something I really like to highlight about the fascia is that it is where a ton of our water is stored, and not just that regular bulk H2O water. It's that exclusion zone water made by our mitochondria. It's that super, what we like to call in the quantum biology space, the super quantum highway communication system for the entire body, because our body is constantly communicating through that fascia. And what I like to help my clients do is make sure their fascia is properly hydrated through using specific myofascial release techniques, as well as simple fascial release techniques that don't really have a name yet, but simple things like just twisting the skin and breathing deeply within and noticing that. So just allowing for that free flowing energy so that we can always ensure that our body is communicating freely and on the same page at the right time.
Awesome. You mentioned the word, and I know it's a big part of your teaching, but I just want to clarify that term because I think it gets thrown around. and outside of the Ant-Man movie where they talk about quantumania, and we did get this little series for my kiddo, the statistical physics, and they have a quantum series for babies for my 2-year-old. But tell us a little bit about that word, the quantum. What is quantum? How do we again conceptualize that?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big question. I grew up especially obsessed with physics. I remember starting to learn about quantum just in freshman year of high school. And really, it's something you can never truly grasp, but aspire to, right? Like Richard Feynman would say. But I like to think of quantum as all the things that we can't see, but we can start to believe and eventually know.
Like germs. Would germs fall under
that? Germs. I like that you bring that to there. Yeah, I guess we can drop germs down into there. I loved the Ant-Man Quantumania. That was a good one. That was a really good one.
Scientifically accurate for those of us.
I don't know about that. So I used to teach my classes called the quantum health class, but I would get a lot of people who are obsessed with just the word quantum. It's like you said, it's a big buzzword these days. But I was lucky enough to work in the quantum biolabs at my university and really get to know what the quantum is. And really, like I said, it's a lot of what we can't see. So a lot of what we worked with in the labs was lasers. And some lasers you couldn't see unless you used a specific card to put it in front of the laser path and notice where it goes. We as humans see very little of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so that's why I like to break it down as things we can't really see. For me, I like to think of quantum. When I think of quantum, which is why I thought it was funny you brought up germs, I like to think about the mitochondria because, it comes down to the mitochondria doing so much for us in our body, talking to themselves, providing us with such important DNA and proteins to do the things we need to do to stay alive. So I love talking about the physics side of quantum, but when we break it down into the biophysics, it simply comes down to how does light affect us and how can we optimize our light environment to optimize our internal health as well.
So for the everyday listener, reader, and I don't know if you cover this in your chapter, I apologize, but when it comes to mitochondria, and I think it'd be worth defining that one more time for the listener as well, if you don't mind, but how do folks maybe get a better sense of how their mitochondria are doing? And again, when I hear that term mitochondria, one of the most famous, I believe it was the most watched TED Talk at some point is what's her name? Dr. Walls, Terry Walls protocol that she has. She had MS and she kind of went down the paleo rabbit hole, and then she eventually found her own protocol. And her talk is called Minding the Mitochondria because she found that focusing on things that would improve her function of her mitochondria helped reverse her multiple sclerosis. It did have a big disclaimer on that talk saying, hey, this is not normal. We don't expect anyone else to follow exactly what she does and then reverse their multiple sclerosis. We're not promising that. So they had to have a lot of controversy and disclaimers around that. But minding the mitochondria, just the importance of that. And again, in anyone's taken a biology class, you might remember it as the powerhouse of the red blood cell, the little factory in there. But yeah, please break it down for us, how to define that mitochondria, and then how would a person maybe go about understanding the functionality of their mitochondria? Is there a way to measure it? Is there any practical way to kind of look at it other than going to your lab maybe?
So that, I could teach a whole entire class on this. And honestly, I did the other day and it was supposed to be 1 hour, ended up being 3 hours. And the ladies loved it so much. We have a part 2 coming up on Wednesday. So I'll try to nutshell this for you, but no promise.
Well, welcome to podcasting.
Yeah, this is my first one. Thank you so much, by the way.
Yeah.
I am so grateful. So the mitochondria, they're signaled by light. They produce the light that is what our body is communicating with. You may have heard of deuterium or come across this concept of deuterium, right? There's so many places to jump into where we can talk about mitochondria and its interaction with light. I like to start with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, how light enters the eye and it immediately funnels into our mitochondria through our brain, of course, because we have an immense density of mitochondria in the brain and the heart, all the muscle cells, like you said, all the cells. From there, the mitochondria is with a huge supply of minerals, of course, which is why minerals are so key in health. It's going to pass this little tiny photon, this little electron of light, this hydrogen, through the electron transport chain inside. I don't know how deep to get into the science here.
That's okay. No. So I was trying to bring it back to. Again. That's where I was saying, what's the practical way? Like, if I'm just like, hey, I'm a dad. I have a 2-year-old. I'm trying to stay healthy. I eat right. I drink, good amount of water, all that good stuff. I do my mobility work, my myofascial release, self-myofascial release. I do some cupping. I do some scraping. I do foam rolling. But yeah, the question is, is there a way to get a better sense outside of like, I'm feeling better, I'm feeling healthier? Is there a way? I do my Whoop tracking. I have a Whoop. We were talking about this with some of the other co-authors. Again, is there a way to do blood work? Is there a way to look at the mitochondria and say, hey, there's all these longevity pieces. Brian Johnson has this How Not to Die Netflix thing that's going on. That's been not a fan. She's not a fan. I didn't think so. And again, a lot of it is not very scientifically based. There's a lot of pseudoscience going on there. So that's my question: is there any way to start looking at, to track it, to look at it,
let's talk about the powerhouse of the cell. And we think of powerhouse as an energy. A lot of us like to think about where our health is in terms of how our energy levels are throughout the day. That's the first step. If you're dying by 2 p.m., you need to take a nap every day. You can consider yourself metabolically not so good. If you're not able to fall asleep late at night, you can consider yourself not metabolically healthy. So I like to go in from an energy standpoint. Of course, there's very expensive tests you can take, like the metabolomics test with, I think it's Quest Diagnostics that do that. I was trained with Dr. Ted Achacoso and his team at Home Hope. That's Health Optimization Medicine and Practice. And you're not getting exactly like how much ATP your mitochondria is making on a daily, but you're going to get a rundown of your entire Krebs cycle, right? Which is what's happening before that oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria. So you can see where you're lacking in nutrients and where you can pick up. So that's a really good marker. But personally, I like to listen to the body.
At the end of that testing, is there kind of a report like eat more broccoli?
16-page report. And then you got to get with the practitioner. So I was trained as a practitioner. There's a few other practitioners out there. Awesome. And yes, I choose not to practice with that test. One, because it's ridiculously expensive and not a lot of people can afford that, nor does insurance cover it. And it's illegal in New York State. All good things.
For anyone who doesn't know, New York has all sorts of weird regulations and rules about blood tests and things like that. So yes, there's a lot of interesting stuff there.
But secondly, Ted and his team really focus on nutraceuticals, which I respect because I'm all about using the earth and what it gives us to heal our bodies naturally. Although there's no way right now to account for the amount of deuterium that's in all of the supplements we take. So, my own test I ran on myself when I was getting certified. I had to take like 6 different supplements per day. And of course, timing is key too. So I was walking around jiggling this whole bag of pills everywhere. And at one point I was just like, how can we account for the deuterium here? And if we're not accounting for the deuterium, then we're just messing up the mitochondria's energy production anyways. So for me, I like to go into those natural resources like grounding, getting the sunlight at proper times, proper doses, and most importantly, controlling your light environment in your home and your electromagnetic environment in your home. So that's why you see me here inside the house with the hat on, with the glasses on. My computer is grounded. I'm on my pulsed electromagnetic mat, all the things.
And can you break down one more time the deuterium for us, what that is, and how to maybe look into that a little more?
Yeah, so in the mitochondria, right, we have that last step in cytochrome 4. Before the little tiny hydrogen, which we know, right, is supposed to be 1 atomic mass unit, one proton, 1 neutron, and a deuterium is a hydrogen that has 2 atomic mass unit. So it's double the size of a regular hydrogen unit. And when it goes through that last cytochrome, when it's trying to pop, or ATPA, not ATPA, sorry. You got me nervous a little bit. When we go through
You're good.
That last step to actually pop out the ATP and the infrared light and the water, which we learn in school as byproducts, waste byproducts. You know, if a deuterium molecule is going through there or a tritium hydrogen molecule is going through there, it's going to block up that last step and actually stop the ATP from being produced, stop the mitochondria from being able to make more energy, and even worse, it's stopping the mitochondria from being able to communicate that it's broken, because it's that little infrared molecule of light, that little photon, that's going to go to the other mitochondria through the fascia and let it know, or the other cell, and let it know, hey, the mitochondria is not working here. We're going to need to kill it and make a new one. But with that deuterium being too heavy, too fat to go through that last little conical structure, it just stops there and stops communication. It's like getting ghosted with someone you're already married to. Terrible thing. So deuterium is something we want to stay away from.
You said it's in certain supplements?
It's in most supplements, because the way we're making supplements, you know, most supplements are made in labs, and most labs have to obey the insurance policies, which say, hey, you need to have some bright lights on you at all times, especially fluorescent lights. And that wacky spectra pattern, if you've ever saw the spectral reading of what a fluorescent light looks like compared to normal daylight, it's honestly scary. So
Oh, I don't recommend folks do that. Don't, just avoid it. Ignorance is bliss. Just kidding a bit. But to bring it back a little bit, okay. So
yeah.
we're avoiding the deuterium. Is there any way to any good resources for, like, you know, major labels of saying, like, you know, the On is a optimized nutrition is a major brand like a GNC. It seems to be one of the lower quality proteins I've seen. I try to avoid that one. And it's at some point it's just choosing maybe what has the less of the toxic load, including things like deuterium. Is there a way to, or a good unbiased website to go to say,
yeah,
what
that's a
could be the
great question.
deuterium load?
That's a great question, but I'm so sorry to let y'all know, like, there's no way to account for it. A lot of these quantum principles, we just haven't created the tech to actually test and see where it's at. That's the whole thing about not being able to wrap your mind around the quantum, but just trying your best to believe and let that knowing come to you. So a lot of my work with my clients is getting them closer with nature, because we know for sure the more hyper localized we are, the more healthy we can become, as we can see from, like, Amish communities who are so deeply entwined with the natural cycles of the earth and the sun, everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons we moved to Colorado. A lot more exposure to natural sunlight and just nature, forests, mountains, the earth. I love it. Yeah. You also want to talk about every human is a planet, and we already talked about mitochondria, but the microbiome, which I think a lot of folks probably know about with antibiotics, probiotics, those terms. But tell us about this planet concept.
Yeah, I love thinking about the human body as its own singular planet, and how we are all in this beautiful solar system together, because it is not just our microbiome in that lower GI. We have the microbiome of our mouth. We have the microbiome of our eyelashes. We have so many different species of different, I like to call them bugs, everywhere. And, you know, something I like to ground everybody with, especially in my classes, is remembering that the mitochondria that's in every single cell of ours is a bacteria all on itself, all by itself. You know, it brings its own RNA to us. And without that, we would not be able to survive even one day. It's so amazing to think that we are a microcosm within ourselves. And, you know, I love how it ties in with a lot of the other chapters, just thinking about that, because I forgot who you said you had on earlier, talking about how we talk to ourselves is so key. And at that vibrational level,
Michael
we are.
McDonald.
That's right, McDonald.
And Amanda Carpenter is also, they're both the two-headed monster of Aya Fit, which is using AI to power the song of your living and life. And if you want to if you did your recent 30-minute video you shared with me, and you talked into the AI and said, hey, make me a playlist based on this, then
Wow.
it would give you resonant music to try to bring, kind of match your energy, and then maybe move you towards a different plane. So that's the idea of that one. So very cool stuff. Yes.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. I could not imagine that. I love using subtle energies myself, subtle energy frequencies and scalar waves, to harmonize a space, especially when I don't have control of my environment. But yeah, Dr. Ted Achacoso, I think, is the one who coined treat the terrain and not the symptoms, looking at the body as an entirety. And I just love that. And I wish we could normalize that thought instead of looking at each little symptom as it's not our body just trying to talk to us and let us know what it needs.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what I think is a connecting theme of all these interviews we've done so far, these podcasts of, again, kind of tying into Peter Attia. I'm not sure how you feel about him. Would love to hear your thoughts, good or bad. But he talks a lot about medicine 2.0 versus medicine 3.0. Medicine 2.0 being you get in a car accident, great, we can fix your broken femur, we can keep you alive, we can check on your vital organs. But medicine 3.0 is a part that's hugely missing. I think that we're all talking about this more holistic, more preventative, more proactive approach, not just dealing with the symptoms. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot there. So did you want to finish? Any thoughts on the human as a planet? Every human is a planet.
No, I think if anybody were to take one thing away from this is, start thinking about your body as the planet that's constantly giving you feedback as how you're doing as a god for this planet.
And then lastly, on your shirt there, the NOSTR.
Yeah.
NOSTR. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. NOSTR stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. So as I talked about a little bit earlier, I was doing a lot of research in the quantum biolabs. And like you mentioned earlier, a lot of what I focus on also is just treating the mitochondria and making sure the mitochondria are perfect. So on my Instagram, I used to be quite active there and post about my research, post about how to make sure your mitochondria are really just chilling and vibing out. And I started getting tagged with that misinformation, that censorship. I am a full-blown American raised in the backwoods, and I believe in my right to free speech. And, I worked very hard to get into the labs and learn and achieve what I have. So for me to be silenced on what I felt I had to share with the world completely tore my heart apart. And when I followed the rabbit hole into decentralized networks, I found this amazing social media protocol called NOSTR. Like I said, notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. So there is no centralization there, completely decentralized network, no algorithms shoving stuff in your face, keeping that dopamine rush high. And I could not be more of a fan there. I've completely left all centralized media except for YouTube because we haven't had a equivalent client app for YouTube just yet. But with the recent development and the recent freeing of Ross Albright, hopefully we'll get there soon. I could not be more of a fan of this and push for people to get onto NOSTR because, back to that thought of every human is a planet and you are that god of the planet. I think it is so key to constantly live in your full, authentic expression. And when we're in an environment where we can't do that, of course, our body's going to take a toll. So another little thing to take away from this one, get on NOSTR, live your authentic life, and don't be afraid to step outside of the normalcy.
Yeah, no, appreciate you sharing that. Very interesting stuff. And as we wrap up here, give folks any last closing thoughts and places to best connect with you.
Yeah, you can find me on NOSTR. Like I said, Limitless Laurel is my thing. YouTube won't let me have Limitless Laurel, so I'm Limitless Laura. My link tree is Limitless Laurel. And I hope you all treat your planets right.
Love it, love it. And before we go, again, one more shout out for our book and what's bringing us all together here, the Healthy for Life book series, launching February 4th. We are recording this on January 26th, 2025. So we're talking 2 Tuesdays from today. If you're watching this, whenever you're watching it, if you're watching after February 4th, it'll be available on Amazon. You can just go there right now. Pause this video, go buy the book. If you are going to be available on February 4th to buy it, the ebook will be available for $1.99. You're not going to get a much better deal than that. We are just trying to get it out to as many people as possible. So if you got $2, $2 American dollars, 2 currencies, go out, get that book, prepare February 4th. If you need to reach out to any of the authors, again, we have this wonderful team, including Limitless Laurel, to get you guys healthier, better for life. So with that said, I hope you all got 1% better. I know I did. We learned a lot of new things. And this is my 6th podcast this weekend. So we're wrapping it up, number 6 to 6 for the weekend. And I am looking forward to connecting more. We'll have to do this again soon, Miss Laurel and everyone else. Hope you got 1% better, and peace out. Go get your blue light blocking glasses and treat